Hello. Can you hear me? How am I coming in? All good? All right. A new system for asking questions, Greeno? What do you mean by that? Oh, yes. There you go, Reed. Actually, that's great. That's much more clearer than if we just did this little four thing like that. I like the it shows up a nice orange when you tag me. So yeah, when we do a question, just do the @student of the path. Actually, it just pops right up, and then ask question. Less lit, less ill with time. Oh, less ill will time. Okay. So anybody's just joining, we're just kind of ramping up to get started here. Going through some things in the chat. Just saying hello to everybody. We'll get started in a bit. You can do an acid pickle here on YouTube? It's amazing. Acid pickles. All right. There's probably nobody here who isn't also on the Discord yet, so I don't have to explain what an acid pickle is. Ah. You have to do it on mobile to get the acid pickle. I see. Oh well. What time we have here? 04. So we'll give it another minute and then we'll get started. Mahaparinibbana Sutta is pretty long, so we will take probably almost the whole 2 hours to go through it, but it's worth it. Especially if you've never read this, if you've never read or heard the Mahaparinibbana Sutta before, this will be good. No, I don't think it's going to take 3 hours. Well, I mean, if you're chanting in the Pali, maybe, yeah, but we're doing English here. I'm not going to be chanting it and then going over the English. Not enough time for that. Mumble. Hey, Mumble. Mumble was the one who last time asked to get on the Discord. I guess Mumble, you never got on. You were never able to get on the Discord with us. We've got to make sure that Mumble Rock 77 gets the Discord, so he can join us. Mumble, actually, here, do this. Send an email to Magaseka, which is student of the path. So Magaseka at gmail.com, right? If you send an email to that, then we can give you an invite. That's better. It's better than to try to figure it all out and put out a link and all that on the chat here. So send an email to this. I don't know why he has this name. What name, Broke Team? So, who asked? I love the tag. It makes it so easy to see when somebody's trying to talk to me directly, tagging me. You may have to explain the acid pickle, Reed says. Well, there's a couple in many suttas, either what a king does to a thief or what as a punishment in hell. One of the punishments is the acid pickle. Nobody quite knows exactly what the acid pickle is. That makes it even worse in our imagination, right? So we can think of all kinds of ways what could be meant by the acid pickle. And so the acid pickle has become a sort of funny punishment on our Students of the Path Discord server. So that's where it is. We like to read suttas, and we're very based on the early Buddhist texts on our Discord server, and so we have all kinds of sutta inside jokes that you're not going to hear. You're not going to hear out pretty much outside. We've cornered the market on sutta inside jokes. All right. Yeah, well, Mohammed, Students of the Path randomies comes from the suttas. Usually doesn't come out of nowhere. Even all the memes, most of the memes are either from the suttas or just about the path, just about the practice, or sometimes about the server itself. Broke Team. In my mind, acid pickle is one of those spicy pickles you get from a gas station. Lol. Well, to some people, that actually could be a severe punishment. So even in that regard, it could be a punishment. All right. Sheridan, I love it. Come for the memes, stay for the Dhamma. We use the memes to trap people so that they can hear the Dhamma. All right. Okay, so let's get started, shall we? And yeah, we're going to use Bhante Sujata's translation. If somebody wants to post a link to that in the chat, for the people who want to follow along. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Only I can post links. All right. That's good. Thank you for reminding me that. No, it's good. So it stops all kinds of craziness. Everybody posting all kinds of random links to websites that are not Dhamma friendly. So actually, that's a good thing that I'm the only one that can post a link, actually. Stops all kinds of craziness. Although it's not like there's a million people in here. It's just mostly people that we know anyway. So pyramid schemes and suttas and all kinds of stuff. All right, so let's get started. So obviously, today is the full moon day in May, right? And tradition holds that on this day, full moon day in May, not obviously not on the same day, but on the full moon in May, the Buddha was born, he became awakened, and he became extinguished. He became Parinibbana, right? So this full moon is probably the most auspicious full moon. I don't know how they do it in Thailand, but I know from Sri Lanka, every full moon has something auspicious tied to it. It's not always something the Buddha did. It's also some his disciples and things like that. But every full moon has some kind of auspiciousness. That's why they like to ordain people on full moons, as opposed to Halloween, like when I got ordained. And Bhante Sealand said, that is not an auspicious day. I said, I thought it was auspicious, Bhante. I like Halloween. So anyway, full moons are very auspicious days. And this is the most auspicious of auspicious full moons in the tradition. So this is a good time for us to read something like the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. This is a very, very long green obino. That's actually perfect. Halloween is auspicious for yakas like me. Yep, it is. Maybe that's why I do find Halloween auspicious, because I was a yaka in my past life. So on this day, though, it's very good to read this sutta, right? Because this is one sutta that is, most suttas are pretty straightforward. They're repetitious, so like that. This is one sutta in all of the suttas that you're going to find that actually kind of almost reads like a story in a way. It's like it's much more of a story, kind of a rolling 3-month story, as opposed to many suttas. So it's a little bit easier to read for some people. This was actually one of the earlier suttas that I read in its entirety, this sutta. And it had, in my early days, and there's tidbits in there in this sutta that were so impactful for me and so matched with my own experience and my own worldview and my own kind of like, yeah, this is how things should be. Yeah, this is exactly right. That, this is something that's extremely, very good in this regard. All right. So let's begin. And this is a very long sutta. We're going to try to minimize too many. I'm not going to be reading the chat a lot, and I'll check for questions and things like that. But I'm not going to make comments and things, or else we're not going to get done. It's never. So I'll look for questions. I'll look when people tag me, and then otherwise I'll just read and give some commentary. So I have heard. I'm going to get my drinks ready here for when my throat goes. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Rajagaha on the Vulture's Peak mountain. Now at that time, King Ajatasattu Vedehiputta, King Ajas. Wow, I can't. I'm going crazy. Ajatasattu. There we go. King Ajatasattu killed his father, King, I believe it was Bimbisara. I'm sure one of you guys is gonna tell me otherwise. I'm pretty sure it was Bimbisara. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Pasenadi. But anyway, he killed his father, who was a major disciple of the Buddha. And so King Ajatasattu did a patricide, which is not a good thing. It's one of the heavy. I was right. It was Bimbisara. Good. So this is a very heavy, deed to kill a mother or a father. So he had a lot of stuff. He had a lot of problems from killing his father. So King Ajatasattu Vedahiputta of Magadha went to invade the Vajis. Vajis are good people, as you'll see. He declared, I shall wipe out these Vajis so mighty and powerful. I shall destroy them and lay ruin and devastation upon them. I'm going to give Greeno Bino a run for his money. See, maybe I'll start doing voices when I read this sutta. And then King Ajatasattu addressed Vasakara, a Brahmin minister of Magadha. Please, Brahmin, go to the Buddha, and in my name, bow with your head to his feet. Ask him if he is healthy and well, nimble, strong, and living comfortably. And then say, Sir, King Ajatasattu Vedahiputta of Magadha wants to invade the Vajis. He says, I will wipe out the Vajis, so mighty and powerful, I shall destroy them and lay ruin and devastation upon them. Remember well how the Buddha answers and tell it to me, for the realized one says nothing that is not so. The Brahmin, Vasakara. Yes, sir, Vasakara replied. He had the finest carriage harnessed. Then he mounted a fine carriage and, along with other fine carriages, set out from Rajagaha for the Vulture's Peak Mountain. He went by carriage as far as the terrain allowed, then descended and approached the Buddha on foot and exchanged greetings with him. When the greetings and polite conversations were over, he sat down to one side and said to the Buddha, Master Gautama, King Ajatasattu Vedahiputta of Magadha bows with his head to your feet. He asks if you are healthy and well, nimble and strong, and living comfortably. Master Gautama, King Ajatasattu, wants to invade the Vajis. He has declared, I shall wipe out these Vajis so mighty and powerful, I shall destroy them and lay ruin and devastation upon them. Principles that prevent decline. This is a very good, starts off very good with a lesson here, right? Now at that time, Venerable Ananda was standing behind the Buddha, fanning him. Then the Buddha said to him, Ananda, have you heard that the Vajis meet frequently and have many meetings? I have heard that, sir. As long as the Vajis meet frequently and have many meetings, they can expect growth, not decline. Why is that, right? This is we meet frequently, we discuss things, compromise on things, work together, right? Something that you're not seeing much of in the country these days, right? So this is when you meet frequently and you have these, you work together, then you are expected for growth, not decline. Ananda, have you heard that the Vajis meet in harmony and leave in harmony and carry on their business in harmony? I have heard that, sir. As long as the Vajis meet in harmony, leave in harmony, and carry on their business in harmony, they can expect growth and not decline. Ananda, have you heard that the Vajis don't make new decrees or abolish existing decrees, but proceed having undertaken the traditional Vajin principles as they have been decreed? I have heard that, sir. As long as the Vajis don't make new decrees or abolish existing decrees, but proceed having undertaken the traditional Vajin principles as they have been decreed, they can accept growth and not decline. Ananda, Have you heard the Vajis honor, respect, esteem, and venerate Vajin elders and think them worth listening to? Another sign of our decline in these modern world. I've heard that, sir. As long as the Vajis honor, respect, esteem, and venerate Vajin elders and think them worth listening to, they can expect growth and not decline. Ananda, have you heard that the Vajis don't rape or abduct women or girls from their families and force them to live with them? I have heard that, sir. As long as the Vajis don't rape or abduct women or girls from their families and force them to live with them, they can expect growth, not decline. Ananda, well, I guess that's one thing that at least is mostly not happening in the West, as far as I know. Maybe in some places, but so that's maybe one thing America's got going for it for the most part. We're not roaming around bandits and marauders. All right. Ananda, have you heard that the Vajis honor, respect, esteem, and venerate the Vajin shrines, whether inner or outer, not neglecting the proper spirit offerings that were given and made in the past? I have heard that. Okay, yes. And since I turned 42, I'm now all respect your elders talk. Yes, Reed. I'm getting up there in years. My life is half over if I'm lucky. All right. Okay, so respect your elders. All right. Okay, so they venerate and esteem their shrines, inner or outer, not neglecting the spirit offerings that were given. Ananda, have you heard that the Vajis arrange for proper protection, shelter, and security for perfected ones, so that more perfected ones might come to the realm, and those already there may live in comfort? This is something that's big even in India to today, as far as I've been told, that when a wandering sadhu, a wandering holy man comes down, people will invite them to their house and do all kinds of things like that, right? Because it's considered very auspicious that a holy person or a wandering sadhu would come to your house, and so they would welcome those people, not just any kind of holy man, any kind of sadhu, any kind of holy person, So this is something that is still a respect. We don't really see too much of that in like the West, but this is coming from that this is respecting these beings. Because if you really think about it, right, the Buddha talks about us wanting, when we examine something that's good or bad, or if it's something that's skillful in our experience or not, what does the Buddha also include, right? And approved by the wise, right? So we can understand with our own experience that this is a good thing, but we also want to check with somebody else too. Just, because sometimes our perceptions are not right. Well, most of the times our perceptions are not right. But, sometimes it's good to check with somebody else who you consider to be wise and skillful that can double check that for you. So, then the Buddha said to Vasakara, Brahmin, this one time I was staying near Vesali at the Sarandara wood shrine. There I taught the Vajis these 7 principles that prevent decline. As long as these 7 principles that prevent decline last long among the Vajis, and as long as the Vajis are seen following them, they can expect growth, not decline. When the Buddha had spoken, Vasakara said to him, Master Gotama, if the Vajis follow even a single one of these principles, they can expect growth and not decline. How much more would all 7? King Ajatasattu cannot defeat the Vajis in war unless by diplomacy or by sowing dissension. Right? Well, now, Master Gotama, I must go. I have many duties and much to do. And if I'm not mistaken, The Vajis actually were conquered after the Buddha died. I think it was, maybe 50, 60 years. Like in the Buddhist time, there were these 16 kingdoms, the Mahapajapadas. I'm going to botch that word. So anyway, there were 16 kingdoms, but by 50 or so years after the Buddha, it was all one empire. So the Vajis fell, not too many decades after the Buddha had his parinibbana. Please, Brahmin, go at your convenience. Then Vasakara, the Brahmin, having approved and agreed with what the Buddha said, got up from his seat and left. Since we finished that section, I'm just going to scroll up a bit here, just see if I see anything. All right. Nope. It's just Reed making fun of my age. It's okay. Making fun of your elders. He's only a couple years younger than me. All right. So now, principles that prevent decline among mendicants. Soon after he had left, the Buddha said to Ananda, "Go, Ananda, gather all the mendicants staying in the vicinity of Rajagaha together in the assembly hall." "Yes, sir," replied Ananda. He did what the Buddha asked. Then he went back, bowed, stood to one side, and said to him, "Sir, the mendicant Sangha has assembled. Please, sir, go at your convenience." Then the Buddha went to the assembly hall where he sat on the seat spread out and addressed the mendicants. "Mendicants, I will teach you these 7 principles that prevent decline. Listen and pay close attention. I will speak." So if you notice, all of these principles that are preventing decline of a larger group have to do with how individuals act. That's an important thing to understand. Right? If you think about it in the world, right? This is what I tell people all the time. You say, "Oh, that government or that corporation or those marketing people or this, whatever." All of those groups are groups of people, right? So the people create a larger thing, a larger organism, as it were, right? So if the people are practicing ways that lead to decline, then everything else is going to lead to decline. So it's a very important thing to understand. So then the Buddha went to the assembly hall. "Monks, I will teach you these 7 principles that prevent decline. Listen and pay close attention. I will speak." "Yes, sir. As long as the mendicants meet frequently and have many meetings, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as the mendicants meet in harmony, live in harmony, and carry on their business in harmony, they can expect growth, not decline." See, so this is something that's important here, right? What is it? It sounds exactly the same as for the lay people, right? Having many meetings, having meetings in harmony, right? As long as the mendicants don't make new decrees or abolish existing decrees, but undertake and follow the training rules as they have been decreed, they can expect growth, not decline. As long as the mendicants honor, respect, esteem, and venerate the senior mendicants, as long-standing, long gone forth, fathers and leaders of the Sangha, and think them worthy of listening to, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as mendicants don't fall under the sway of arisen craving for future lives, they can expect growth, not decline. As long as mendicants take care to live in wilderness lodgings, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as the mendicants individually establish mindfulness so that the more good-hearted spiritual companions might come, and those that have already come may live comfortably, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as these 7 principles that are prevent decline last among the mendicants, as long as the mendicants are seen following them, they can expect growth and not decline. I will teach you 7 more principles So the monks have more principles that prevent decline. As long as the mendicants don't relish work, loving it and liking to relish it, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as they don't enjoy talk, sleep, company, they don't have wicked desires falling under the sway of wicked desires. They don't have bad friends, bad companions, bad associates. They don't stop halfway after achieving some insignificant distinction, i.e., don't quit. They can expect growth and not decline. As long as these 7 principles that prevent decline last among the mendicants, and as long as the mendicants are seen following them, they can expect growth and not decline. I will teach you 7 more principles that prevent decline. As long as the mendicants are faithful, conscientious, prudent, learned, energetic, mindful, wise, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as these 7 principles that prevent decline last among the mendicants, as long as the mendicants are seen following them, they can expect growth and not decline. I will teach you 7 more principles that prevent decline. As long as mendicants develop the awakening factors of mindfulness, investigation, energy, rapture, tranquility, immersion, equanimity, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as these 7 factors that prevent decline last among the mendicants, and as long as the mendicants are seen following them, they can expect growth and not decline. I will teach you 7 more principles that prevent decline. As long as the mendicants develop the perceptions of impermanence, not self, ugliness, there's our asubha, drawbacks, giving up, fading away, cessation, they can expect growth and not decline. We went over that series before. Yes, but wait, there's more. For $5.95. No, okay. As long as these 7 principles, I will teach you 6 principles that prevent decline. Buddha's not done yet. As long as mendicants consistently treat their spiritual companions with bodily kindness, verbal kindness, mental kindness, both in public and in private, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as the mendicants share without reservation any material possessions they have gained by legitimate means, even food placed in the alms bowl, using them in common with their ethical spiritual companions, they can expect growth, not decline. As long as mendicants live according to the precepts shared with their spiritual companions, both in public and in private, such precepts are unbroken, impeccable, spotless, and unmarred, liberating, praised by sensible people, not mistaken, and leading to immersion. They can expect growth and not decline. As long as mendicants live according to the view shared with their spiritual companions, both in public and in private, the view that is noble, emancipating, leads one to who practices it to its complete end of suffering, they can expect growth and not decline. As long as these 6 principles that prevent decline last among the mendicants, and as long as the mendicants are seen following them, they can expect growth and not decline. And while staying there at the Vulture's Peak, the Buddha often gave this Dhamma talk to the mendicants. Such as ethics, such as immersion, such as wisdom. When immersion is imbued with ethics, it's very fruitful and beneficial. When wisdom is imbued with immersion, it's fruitful and beneficial. When the mind is imbued with wisdom, it's rightly freed from the defilements, namely the defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. When the Buddha had stayed in Rajagaha as long as he wished, he addressed Venerable Ananda. Come, Ananda, let us go to Ambalatika. Yes, sir, Ananda replied. Then the Buddha, together with a large Sangha of mendicants, arrived at Ambalatika where he stayed in the royal rest house. And while staying there, too, he often gave this Dhamma talk to the Mendicants. Such as ethics, such as immersion, such as wisdom. So this is Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, the three facets, the three categories of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? Sila, Samadhi, Panya. When immersion is imbued with ethics, it is very fruitful and beneficial. When wisdom is imbued with immersion, it is very fruitful and beneficial. When the mind is imbued with wisdom, it is rightly freed from the defilements, namely the defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. When the Buddha had stayed in Ambalatika as long as he wished, he addressed the Venerable Ananda, "Come, Ananda, let us go to Nalanda." "Yes, sir," Ananda replied. Then the Buddha, together with a large Sangha of Mendicants, arrived at Nalanda, where he stayed at Pavarika's mango grove. Sariputta's lion's roar. Number 4. Then Sariputta went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, "Sir, I have such confidence in the Buddha that I believe there's no other ascetic or Brahmin, whether past, future, or present, whose direct knowledge is superior to the Buddha when it comes to awakening." See, even when you roar your lion's roar, you can be wrong. Just because you roar your lion's roar doesn't mean you're 100% right. That's a grand and dramatic statement, Sariputta. You've roared a definitive categorical lion's roar, saying, "I have such confidence in the Buddha that I believe there's no other ascetic or Brahmin." So this is like one of the only times in the suttas where you see Sariputta make a mistake. Pretty much. You have roared a definitive categorical lion's roar, saying, "I have such confidence in the Buddha that I believe there's no other ascetic or Brahmin, whether past, future, or present, whose direct knowledge is superior to the Buddha when it comes to awakening." What about all the perfected ones, the fully awakened Buddhas who lived in the past? Have you comprehended their minds to know that those Buddhas had such ethics, or such qualities, or such wisdom, or such meditation, or such freedom? No, sir. And what about all the perfected ones, the fully awakened Buddhas who will live in the future? Have you comprehended their minds to know that those Buddhas will have such ethics, such qualities, such wisdom, or such meditation, or such freedom? No, sir. And what about me, the perfected one, the fully awakened Buddha at present? Have you comprehended my mind to know that I have such ethics, or such teachings, or such wisdom, such meditation, such freedom? No, sir. Well then, Sariputta, given that you don't comprehend the minds of Buddhas, past, future, or present, what exactly are you doing, making such a grand, dramatic statement, roaring such a definitive, categorical lion's roar? Sir, though I don't comprehend the minds of Buddhas, past, future, and present, I still understand this by inference from the teaching. Suppose there was a king's frontier citadel with fortified embankments, ramparts, and arches, and a single gate. And it has a gatekeeper who is astute, competent, and intelligent. He keeps strangers out and lets known people in. As he walks around the patrol, he doesn't see a hole or a cleft in the wall, not even one big enough for a cat to slip out. He thinks, whatever sizable creatures enter and leave the citadel, all of them do so via this gate. In the same way, I understand this by inference from the teaching. All the perfected ones, fully awakened Buddhas, whether past, future, or present, give up the 5 hindrances, corruptions of the heart that weaken wisdom. Their mind is firmly established in the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. They correctly develop the 7 awakening factors, and they wake up to the supreme, perfect awakening. And while Nalanda, so Sariputta saved, he lowered his lion's roar just a little bit. Okay, well, I know that all of the awakened ones have this. Right? Okay. While staying at Nalanda, too, the Buddha often gave the Dhamma talk to mendicants, such as ethics, such as immersion, such as wisdom. When immersion is imbued with ethics, it's very fruitful and beneficial. When wisdom is imbued with immersion, it's very fruitful and beneficial. When the mind is imbued with wisdom, it's rightly freed from defilements, namely the defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. I'm going to just take a drink here. Adriana, do you remember when we read this about 7 or 8 months months ago on the Saturday session? Didn't we take like 3 sessions to do this? I'm going to try to knock this out in 2 hours. We'll see. All right. The drawbacks of unethical conduct. When the Buddha had stayed near Nalanda as long as he wished, he addressed Venerable Ananda. Come, Ananda, let's go to Pataligama. Yes, sir, Ananda replied. And then the Buddha, together with a large Sangha of mendicants, arrived at Pataligama. The lay followers of Pataligama heard that he had arrived, so they went to see him, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, Sir, please consent to come to our guest house. The Buddha consented in silence. Then, knowing that the Buddha had consented, the lay follower of Pataligama got up from their seat, bowed, and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on their right. Then they went to the guest house, where they spread carpets all over, prepared seats, set up water jar, and placed a lamp. Then they went back to the Buddha, bowed, stood to one side, and told him of the preparations. Please, sir, come at your convenience. In the morning, the Buddha rose up, and taking his bowl and robe, went to the guest house together with the Sangha of mendicants. Having washed his feet, he entered the guest house and sat against the central column facing east. The Sangha of mendicants also washed their feet, entered the guest house, and sat against the wall facing east, with the Buddha right in front of them. The lay followers of Pataligama, who also washed their feet, entered the guest house, and sat against the east wall facing west, with the Buddha right in front of them. I don't know. I think we can read this in 2 hours. I mean, I'm about a third of the way through already. Somewhere's around there. Let's do it. Then the Buddha addressed them. Householders, there are these 5 adinava, 5 drawbacks, dangers, for an unethical person because of their failure in ethics. What 5? Firstly, an unethical person loses substantial wealth on account of negligence. This is the first drawback for an unethical person because of their failure in ethics. Furthermore, an unethical person gets a bad reputation. This is the second drawback. Furthermore, an unethical person enters any kind of assembly timid or embarrassed, whether it's an assembly of aristocrats, Brahmins, householders, or ascetics. This is the third drawback. Furthermore, an unethical person, when their body breaks up after death, is reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. This is the 5th drawback. These are the 5 drawbacks for an unethical person because of their failure in ethics. The benefits of ethical conduct. These are the 5 benefits for an ethical person because of their accomplishment in ethics. What 5? Firstly, an ethical person gains substantial wealth on accounts of diligence. This is the first benefit. Furthermore, an ethical person gets a good reputation. This is the second benefit. Furthermore, an ethical person enters any kind of assembly bold and self-assured, whether it's an assembly of aristocrats, Brahmins, householders, or ascetics. This is the third benefit. Furthermore, an ethical person dies not feeling lost. This is the 4th. Thanks for the spoilers. Spoiler alert, Buddha becomes extinguished and leaves the world. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, it came out 2,600 years ago, so you had time to see it by now. All right. They were born in a good place, a heavenly realm. This is the fifth. These are the 5 benefits. The Buddha spent most of the night educating, encouraging, firing up, and inspiring the lay followers of Pataligama with the Dhamma talk. Then he dismissed them. The night is getting late, householders. Please go at your convenience. So normally the lay people are all like, we're kind of busy. We're gonna leave. But this time the Buddha's like, it's getting late. Go at your convenience. All right. Yes, sir, they replied. They got up from their seats, bowed, and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on their right before leaving. Soon after, they left the Buddha, keeping them on their right. It's not a coincidence that monks have their right shoulder. Well, I mean, in America, right? Bhante G has us wear shirts, but if I was Thai Forest, you'd see my right shoulder, right? Because that is, so like when we wear a travel robe and it goes over both shoulders, before we bow to we pay our respects to a monk, we have to go to this regular robe. So our shoulder, if we bow to the Buddha or we bow to a senior monastic, we have to have our shoulder open, our right shoulder. All right. Building a citadel, number 7. Now, at that time, the Magadhan ministers Sunita and Vasakara were building a citadel at Pataligama to keep the Vajis out. At that time, thousands of deities were taking possession of building sites in Pataligama. Illustrious rulers or royal ministers inclined to build houses at sites possessed by illustrious deities. Middling rulers or royal ministers inclined to build houses at sites possessed by middling deities. I'm sorry, honey, we can only afford these middling deities. We can't have the high-end deities in our house. Lesser rulers or royal ministers inclined to build houses at sites possessed by lesser deities. With clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, the Buddha saw these deities taking possession of building sites in Pataligama. So the deities are squatters. they're going into all these empty buildings. This is our house. All right. Saw these deities taking possession of building sites. The Buddha rose at the crack of dawn and addressed Ananda. Ananda, who is building a citadel near Pataligama. Sir, the Magadhan ministers Sunita and Vasakara are building a citadel to keep the Vajis out. It's as if they were building a citadel in consultation with the gods of the 33. With clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, I saw those deities taking possession of building sites. Illustrious rulers or royal ministers inclined to build houses at sites possessed by illustrious, middling at sites possessed by middling, lesser at sites possessed by lesser deities. As far as the civilized region extends, as far as the trading zone extends, this will be the chief city, the Pataliputta Trade Center. But Pataliputta will face 3 threats from fire, flood, and dissension. Then the Magadhan ministers Sunita and Vasakara approached the Buddha and exchanged greetings with him. When the greetings and polite conversation were over, they stood to one side and said, "Would Master Gautama, together with the Mendicant Sangha, please accept today's meal for me?" The Buddha consented in silence. Then, knowing that the Buddha had consented, they went to their own guest house, where they had a variety of delicious foods prepared. Then they had the Buddha informed of the time. Master, it is Master Gautama, the meal is ready. Then the Buddha robed up in the morning and taking his bowl and robe, went to the guest house together with the Mendicant Sangha, where he sat on a seat spread out. Then Sunita and Vasikara served and satisfied the Mendicant Sangha headed by the Buddha with their own hands, with a variety of delicious foods. When the Buddha had eaten and washed his hand in the bowl, Sunita and Vasikara took a low seat to one side. The Buddha expressed his appreciation with these verses. In the place he makes his dwelling, having fed the astute and the virtuous here, the restrained spiritual practitioners, he should dedicate an offering to the deities here. Venerated, they venerate him. Honored, they honor him. It's from the Mangala Sutta, right? Or no, Ratana Sutta. Deities pay attention to the humans. Day and night they give you offerings, right? Protect the humans. After that, they have compassion for him, like a mother for a child at her breast. A man beloved by the deities always sees nice things. When the Buddha had expressed his appreciation to Sunita and Vasikara with these verses, he got up from his seat and left. Sunita and Vasikara followed behind the Buddha, thinking, the gate through which this ascetic departs today shall be named the Gautama Gate. The ford at which he crosses the Ganges River shall be named the Gautama Ford. Then the gate through which the Buddha departed was named the Gautama Gate. The Buddha came to the Ganges River. Now at that time, the Ganges was full to the brim, so a crow could drink from it. Wanting to cross from the near to the far shore, some people were seeking a boat, some a dinghy, while some were tying up a raft. But as easily as a strong person would extend or contract their arm, the Buddha, together with the Mendicant Sangha, vanished from the near shore and landed on the far shore. Man, that's good. You don't have to wait in lines when you have that ability. Wait, waiting in line? Nah. Whoosh. Across the river. All right. He saw all the people waiting to cross over. Knowing the meaning of this, on that occasion, the Buddha was inspired to exclaim, those who cross the river or stream have built a bridge and left the marshes behind. While some people are still tying a raft, intelligent people have crossed over. Talk on the noble truths. Then the Buddha said to Venerable Ananda, come, Ananda, let us go to Kotigama. Yes, sir, Ananda replied. Then the Buddha, together with a large Sangha of mendicants, arrived at Kotigama and stayed there. There he addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, not understanding and not penetrating the Four Noble Truths, both you and I have wandered and transmigrated for such a very long time. What for? The Noble Truths of suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. These Noble Truths of suffering, origin, cessation, and the path have been understood and comprehended. Craving for conditioned existence or continued existence has been cut off. The attachment to continued existence is ended. Now there are no more future lives. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One went on to say, because of not seeing the Four Noble Truths, we have transmigrated for a long time, from rebirth to the next. But now that these truths have been seen, the attachment to rebirth is eradicated, the root of suffering is cut off, there is no more future lives. And while staying at Kotigama too, the Buddha often gave this Dhamma talk. We know that Dhamma talk. I'm going to skip these in the effort of time, such as ethics, such as immersion, such as wisdom. The deaths of Nadika. When the Buddha had stayed at Kotigama as long as he wished, he said to Ananda, come, Ananda, let's go to Nadika. Yes, sir, Ananda replied. Then the Buddha, the deaths in Nadika, sorry. The Buddha, together with a large Sangha of mendicants, arrived at Nadika, where he stayed in a brick house. Then Venerable Ananda went up to the Buddha, bowed and sat down to one side and said to him, Sir, the monk named Salha has passed away in Nadika. Where has he been reborn in the next life? The nun named Nanda, the laywoman named Sudatta, and the laywoman named Sujata have passed away in Nadika. Where have they been reborn in the next life? The layman named Kakata, Kaliba, Nikata, Kattisa, Tutta, Santutta, Baddha, and Subhadda have passed away in Nadika. Where have they been reborn in the next life? This reminds me of another sutta where Ananda comes to the Buddha and says that, like, where have these people been reborn? And then the Buddha is like, Ananda, it is not a surprise that those who are born will die. But if you keep asking me this question, I will be quite vexed or quite exhausted or something like that. And here, this one, the Buddha's he just like rapid fires like 8 names at the Buddha. Where did all these people go? Ananda, the monk Salha has realized the undefiled freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom in this very life, having realized it with his own insight due to the end of defilements. Then the Nanda has ended the 5 fetters, lower fetters. She's been reborn spontaneously, so she's a non-returner, and will be extinguished here. Not liable to return to the world. The layman Suddhata has ended the 3 fetters and weakened greed, hatred, and delusion. So that is a once returner. He's a once returner. Oh, there it is. He's a once returner. He will come back to the world only once, then make an end to suffering. The laywoman Sujata has entered the 3 fetters. She's a stream enterer, not liable to be reborn in the underworld, bound for awakening. The layman Kakata, Kaliba, Nikata, Kattisa, Tutta, Santutta, Baddha, and Subhadda had ended the 5 lower fetters. They've been reborn spontaneously and will be extinguished there, not liable to return from the world. It's a lot of lay people who became non-returners. That don't ever try to use lay life as an excuse. Over 50 laymen in Nadika have passed away and have entered the 5 lower. Wow, this place got a lot of non-returners. They have been reborn spontaneously and will be extinguished there, not liable to return to the world. More than 90 laymen in Nandika have passed away, ending the 3 fetters, and weakened greed, hatred, and delusion. They're once returners who will come back to this world only once, then make an end to suffering. In excess of 500 laymen in Nandika have passed away, having ended the 3 fetters. They're stream enterers, not liable to reborn in the underworld, bound for awakening. The mirror of the teaching. It's hardly surprising that a human being should pass away. There it is again. This is interesting how it's in another chapter, though. It's hardly surprising that a human being should pass away. But if you should come and ask me about this each and every time someone passes away, that would be a bother for me. There it is. It's right in this one, too. Come on, Ananda. All right. So, Ananda, I will teach you the explanation of the Dhamma called the mirror of the teaching. A noble disciple who has this may declare themselves, I'm finished with rebirth in hell, the animal realm, and the ghost realm. I'm finished with all places of loss, bad places, the underworld. I'm a stream enterer. I'm not liable to be reborn in the underworld and bound for awakening. And what is the mirror of the teaching? It's when a noble disciple has experiential confidence in the Buddha. That blessed one is perfected, fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and exalted. And of course, that's the 9 qualities of the Buddha. They have experiential confidence in the teaching. The teaching is well explained by the Buddha, visible in this very life, immediately effective, inviting inspection, relevant, and so that sensible people can know it for themselves, the qualities of the Dhamma. They have experiential confidence in the Sangha. The Sangha of the Buddha's disciples is practicing the way that's good, straightforward, methodical, and proper. It consists of the 4 parts, the 8 individuals, or 4 pairs, 8 individuals. This is the Sangha of the Buddhist disciples that is worthy of offering dedicated to the gods, worthy of hospitality, worthy of religious donation, worthy of greeting and joined palms. It is the supreme field of merit for the world. So if you ever chanted, or if you've heard chanted, Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampano, that if you've heard that chanted, that's the beginning of the qualities of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. At Bhavana, that's the beginning. After Namo Tassa, that's the very first thing that we chant every morning. And in noble disciples, ethical conduct is loved by the noble ones, unbroken, impeccable, spotless and unmarred, liberating, praised by sensible people, not mistaken, and leading to immersion. This is the mirror of the teaching. And while staying at Nadika, the Buddha often gave the talk. We know the Dhamma talk the Buddha gave, such as Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. All right. When the Buddha had stayed in Nadika as long as he wished, "Come, Ananda, let's go to Vesali." "Yes, sir," Ananda replied. Then the Buddha, together with a large Sangha, arrived at Vesali, where he stayed at Ambapali. Ambapali's mango grove. Ambapali is the courtesan that donated the mango grove to the Sangha, one of the Buddha's disciples. Mendicants. A mendicant should live mindful and aware. This is my instruction to you. And how is a mendicant mindful? It's when a mendicant meditates by observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of feelings, mind, principles, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. That's how a mendicant is mindful. So, 4 foundations of mindfulness. The mango maiden. I've never heard that one before. That actually works pretty good. The mango maiden. And how is a mendicant aware? It's when a mendicant acts with situational awareness, when going out and coming back, when looking ahead and aside, when bending and extending limbs, when bearing the outer robe, bowl, and robes, when eating, drinking, chewing, and tasting, when urinating and defecating, when walking, standing, sitting, sleeping, waking, speaking, and keeping silent. That's how a mendicant is aware. A mendicant should live mindful and aware. This is my instruction to you. Ambapali, the courtesan. Ambapali, the courtesan, however you want to say it, heard that the Buddha had arrived and was staying in her mango grove. She had the finest carriages harnessed. Then she mounted a fine carriage and, along with other fine carriages, set out from Vesali for her own park. She went by carriage as far as the terrain allowed, then descended and approached the Buddha on foot. She bowed and sat down to one side. The Buddha, educated, encouraged, fired up, and inspired her with a Dhamma talk. Then she said to the Buddha, "Sir, may the Buddha, together with the mendicants, Sangha, please accept tomorrow's meal from me." The Buddha consented in silence. Then, knowing that the Buddha had consented, Ambapali got up from her seat, bowed, and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on her right. So Ambapali is so wonderful. She offered to have a meal, and then the Lichavis come in. These Lichavis. The Lichavis of Vesali also heard the Buddha had arrived and was staying at Ambapali's mango grove. They had the finest carriages harnessed, mounted up. We know this. Some Lichavis were in blue, of blue color, clad in blue, or adorned with blue. And some were similarly colored in yellow, red, or white. Then Ambapali, the courtesan, collided with those Lichavi youths, axle to axle, wheel to wheel, yoke to yoke. The Lichavi said to her, "What the hell, Ambapali?" there's Bhante Sujata's. What the hell? One of the best reasons to read Bhante Sujata's translation. "What the hell, Ambapali, are you doing, colliding with us, axle to axle, wheel to wheel, yoke to yoke?" "Well, my lord, just because I've invited the Buddha for tomorrow's meal together with the Mendicant Sangha." "Girl, give us that meal for 100,000. "My lords, even if you were to give me Vesali with her fiefdoms, I still wouldn't give that meal to you." Then the Lichavis snap their fingers, saying, it's like, snap their fingers. We've been beaten by the mango matron. We've been beaten by the mango matron. Then they continued on to Ambapali's grove. There it is, the mango matron. See, I haven't read this in Bhante Sujata's translation yet, so this is the first time I'm seeing that. Well, from Gabriella, she said it. All right. Okay, they continued on to Ambapali's grove. The Buddha saw them coming off in the distance and addressed the mendicants. Any of the mendicants who've never seen the gods of the 33 just have to look at the assembly of the Lichavis. See the assembly of Lichavis, check them out. They're just like the 33. The Lichavis went by carriage as far as the terrain allowed, then descended and approached the Buddha on foot. They bowed to the Buddha, sat down to one side. The Buddha educated, encouraged, and fired them up and inspired them with the Dhamma talk. Then they, sir, may the Buddha together with the Mendicant Sangha please accept the meal from us tomorrow. I have already accepted tomorrow's meal from Ambapali the courtesan. I don't want to go too deep into craving for continued existence. Let's save that to see if we can. Well, there's three cravings: craving for sensual pleasures, craving for continued existence, most often because you want to continue craving for sensual pleasures, and the third one is craving for non-existence. So those are the three tanha. The Lichavis snapped their fingers. No, we're past that. Okay, right there. Then the Buddha said, sir, okay. Then the Buddha said, I have already accepted tomorrow's meal from the Metras. Then the Lichavis snapped their fingers, saying, we've been beaten by the mango matron. We've been beaten by the mango matron. And then those Lichavis approved and agreed with what the Buddha said. They got up from their seat, bowed, and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on his right before leaving. When the night had passed and Ambapali had a variety of delicious foods prepared in her own park, then she had the Buddha informed of the time, saying, sir, it's time. The meal is ready. Then the Buddha robed up in the morning and taking his bowl and robe, went to the home of Ambapali together with the Mendicant Sangha, where they sat on the seats spread out. Then Ambapali served and satisfied the Mendicant Sangha, headed by the Buddha, with her own hands, with a variety of delicious food. When the Buddha had eaten and washed his hands in the bowl, Ambapali took a slow seat to one side and said to the Buddha, sir, I present this park to the Mendicant Sangha, headed by the Buddha. The Buddha accepted the park. Then the Buddha educated, encouraged, fired up, and inspired her with a Dhamma talk, after which he got up and left his seat. And while staying at Vesali, too, the Buddha often gave this talk. We know what the talk is. Commencing the Rains, number 12. When the Buddha had stayed in Ambapali's grove for as long as he wished, he addressed Venerable Ananda. Come, Ananda, let's go to the little village of Beluva. Yes, sir, Ananda replied. Then the Buddha, together with the large Sangha of mendicants, arrived at the little village of Beluva and stayed there. Then the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, please enter the rainy season residence with whatever friends or acquaintances you have around Vesali. I'll commence the rainy season residence right here in the little village of Beluva. Yes, sir, they replied, and they did as the Buddha said. The Buddha commenced the rainy season right in the little village of Beluva. After the Buddha had commenced the rainy season residence, he fell severely ill, struck by dreadful pains close to death. But he endured with mindfulness and situational awareness without worrying. Then it occurred to the Buddha, it would not be appropriate for me to be fully extinguished before informing my attendants and taking leave of the Mendicant Sangha. Why don't I forcefully suppress this illness, stabilize the life force, and live on? Right? And so before we That's key, right? That's it, because we usually blame Ananda. Ananda, you stupid fool. But we can see that the Buddha he was already on the way out. He had to stabilize the life force, suppress the illness. So that's what he did. Then the Buddha's illness died down. So after the Buddha had recovered from that sickness, he came out from his dwelling and sat in the shade of the porch on a seat spread out. Then Venerable Ananda went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat to one side, and said to him, "Sir, it's fantastic that the Buddha is comfortable and well, because when the Buddha was sick, my body felt like it was drugged. I was disoriented, and the teachings weren't clear to me. Still, at least I was consoled by the thought that the Buddha won't become fully extinguished without making some statement regarding the Sangha of Mendicants." So obviously Ananda is not awakened here. We know he becomes awakened after the Buddha's parinibbana. So he's a nervous wreck at the Buddha being sick. But what could the Mendicant Sangha expect from me, Ananda? I've taught the Dhamma without making any distinction between secret and public teachings. So this is one of the first ones that to me was extremely impactful, right? So the Buddha is saying here that he teaches with an open palm, not a closed fist, meaning that there's no secret teachings. There's no, you have to reach level 10, whatever Sakya, and then the Buddha has more teachings for you. There's none of that. He teaches with an open palm. It's very important. This was very profound for me, when I read this in the early days. Oh, the realized one doesn't have the closed fist of a teacher when it comes to the teachings. If there's anyone who thinks, I'll take charge of this is interesting. All right. The realized one doesn't have a closed fist of a teacher when it comes to the teachings. Stop. If there's anyone who thinks, I'll take charge of the Sangha of Mendicants, or the Sangha of Mendicants is meant for me, let them make a statement regarding the Sangha. Right? So if there's anybody that wants to make a statement, just go ahead. Let them make a statement regarding the Sangha. But the realized one doesn't think like this. So why should he make some statement regarding the Sangha? I'm now old, elderly, and senior. I'm advanced in years and have reached the final stage of life. I'm currently 80 years old. Just as a decrepit cart keeps going on by relying on straps, in the same one, the realized one's body, somebody's question I saw real quick, same one, the realized one's body keeps going by relying on straps. So you'd think. Sometimes the realized one, not focusing on any signs and with the cessation of certain feelings, enters and remains in the signless immersion of the heart. Only then does the realized one's body become more comfortable. So Ananda, be your own island. Here he goes. Here's another one. Boom, right to the, this is amazing. Be your own island, your own refuge. Remember, there's a double meaning to this. Deepa is island, but it's also lamp. Be your own light. Be your own lamp. Your own light in the darkness, right? Be your own refuge with no other refuge. Let the teaching be your island and your refuge with no other refuge. And how does a mendicant do this? It's when a mendicant meditates by observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. And we know that feeling, mind, principles, etc. Right? Keen, aware, rid of desire and aversion. That's how a mendicant is their own island, their own refuge. Whether now or after I have passed, that's how the teaching is. That's how the teaching is their island and their refuge with no other refuge. Whether now or after I have passed, any who shall live as their own island, their own refuge with no other refuge, with the teaching as their island and their refuge, with no other refuge. Those mendicants of mine who want to train, shall become among the best of the best. There it is. Amazing. An obvious hint. Then the Buddha, robed up in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, entered Vesali for alms. Then after the meal, on his return from alms round, he addressed Venerable Ananda. Ananda, get your sitting cloth. Let's go to the Kapala shrine for the day's meditation. Yes, sir, replied Ananda. Taking his sitting cloth, he followed behind Buddha. Then the Buddha went up to the Kapala shrine, where he sat on the seat spread out. Ananda bowed to the Buddha and sat down to one side. I have to pause here every time for poor Ananda. Buddha said to him, Ananda, Vesali is lovely. And then the Udana Gotamaka, Satamba, and Bahuputta, Sarandada, and Kapala shrines are all lovely. Whoever has developed and cultivated the 4 bases of psychic power, made them a vehicle and a basis, kept them up, consolidated them, and properly implemented them, may, if they wish, live on for an eon or what's left of an eon. Realized one has developed and cultivated the 4 bases of psychic power, made them a vehicle and a basis, kept them up, consolidated them, and properly implemented them. If he wished, the realized one could live on for the eon or what's left of the eon. But Ananda didn't get it. Although, it's interesting, right? The body, Buddha's saying the body's he's already keeping the body up by straps. What would his body look like if it's 1,000, 10,000 years later, he's still around keeping it up by straps? The image of zombie Jesus came into my mind. It would be like zombie Buddha. What would Buddha's body last that long? I don't know. All right. But Ananda didn't get it. Even though the Buddha dropped such an obvious hint, such a clear sign, he didn't beg the Buddha, Sir, may the Blessed One please remain for the eon. May the Holy One please remain for the eon. That would be for the welfare and happiness of the people, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and humans. For his mind was as if possessed by Mara. For a third time, the Buddha said to Ananda, whoever developed the same thing. If he wished to realize one could live on for an eon or what's left of it. But Ananda didn't get it. Even though such an obvious hit, he did not ask him to stay on for the eon. It will be for the benefit of all beings. Then the Buddha got up and said to Ananda, Go now, Ananda, at your own convenience. Yes, sir, replied Ananda. He rose from his seat, bowed, and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on his right before sitting at the root of the tree close by. So this is, we've already seen 2 examples of why we on our Discord, on our Students of the Path Discord, we call Ananda the every person. Right? Ananda is the one who is the most relatable, right, to us. Because we have this, when we think of all the disciples, all these big names, Sariputta, Mahamoggallana, Mahakassapa, the grumpy old man of the Sangha, all of these big names. But we see Ananda many times, over and over, right? Kalyanamitta is half of the holy life, right? Dependent origination is not that hard. I can see it. Do not say that, Ananda. Poor Ananda is just like us, or he was before he became awakened anyway. The appeal of Mara. And then not long after Ananda had left, Mara the wicked went up to the Buddha, stood to one side, and said to him, Sir, may the Blessed One now become fully extinguished, Parinibbana. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time. Do you not know my power? Now is the time for the Blessed One to become fully extinguished. Sir, you once made this statement. Wicked One, I will not become fully extinguished. Now, this is important, right? So the Buddha, at the beginning of his career, made this statement to Mara. Right? I will not become extinguished until I have monk disciples who are competent, educated, assured, learned, have memorized the teachings, and practice in line with the teachings. Not until they practice properly, living in line with the teachings. Not until they have learned their tradition and explain, teach, assert, establish, disclose, analyze, and make it clear. Not until they can legitimately, completely refute the doctrines of others that come up and teach with a demonstrable basis. Today you have such monk disciples. May the Blessed One now become fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time to get out of here. Wicked One, I will not be fully extinguished until I have none disciples, bhikkhunis, who are competent, educated, assured, learned, ... Today you have such none disciples. May the Blessed One now become fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time for the Buddha to get out of here. Sir, you once made this statement. Wicked One, I will not become fully extinguished until I have laymen disciples who are competent, educated, ... Today you have such disciples. Get out of here. Sir, you made this statement. I will not become fully extinguished until I have lay women disciples who are competent, educated, ... Today you have such lay women. Get out of here. Sir, you made this statement. Wicked One, I will not become fully extinguished until my spiritual life is successful and prosperous, extensive, popular, widespread, and well proclaimed wherever there are gods and humans. Today, your spiritual life is this way. Get out of here. When this was said, the Buddha said to Mara, relax, Wicked One, relax. The final extinguishment of the realized one will be soon. Thanks to Ananda. 3 months from now, the realized one will be finally extinguished. And then there was much rejoicing. So, the Fourfold Assembly, the basis for the continued flourishing of Buddhism, right? And this is why I'm so happy that on our Discord, on Students of the Path, we now have the Fourfold Assembly. Right? We didn't have a bhikkhuni on there with us for a long time, but now we do. So now we have the Fourfold Assembly with us all together in Students of the Path. Yeah, it lagged. So I think it was I think it was probably on YouTube's end. Don't let Dhammapalooza extinguish. Dhammapalooza will extinguish when I go back to Bhavana, because I'm not going to be able to do this on Bhavana on Bhavana internet. But when I leave Bhavana, then Dhammapalooza can come back. Yeah. All right. Surrendering the life force. We got to move. Time is of the short here. So at Kapala Shrine, tree shrine, the Buddha, mindful and aware, surrendered to life force. When he did so, there was a great earthquake, awe-inspiring and hair-raising, and thunder cracked the sky. Then, knowing the meaning of this, the Buddha said, weighing up the incomparable against the an extension of life, the sage surrendered to life force. Happy inside, serene, he burst out of this self-made chain like a suit of armor. The causes of earthquakes. Then the Venerable Ananda, how incredible, how amazing. Why did that earthquake just happen, Buddha? What's the cause of that for this earthquake? Venerable Ananda went to the Buddha. How incredible, what is the cause? There are these 8 causes and reasons for a great earthquake. What 8? The great earth is grounded in water. The water is grounded on air. The air stands in space. At a time when the great wind blows, it stirs the water stirs the earth. This is the first cause and reason for the great earthquake. Furthermore, an ascetic or Brahmin with psychic power who has achieved mastery of the mind, or a god who is mighty and powerful, they've developed a limited perception of earth, and they make the earth shake. Furthermore, when being is intent on awakening, passes away from the host of joyful gods, He is conceived in his mother's belly, mindful and aware. Then the earth shakes and rocks, trembles. So this is when the Buddha was born, earthquakes. Furthermore, when the being on 10 of awakening comes out of his mother's belly, mindful and aware, the earth shakes. Furthermore, when the realized one realizes the supreme perfect awakening, the earth shakes and rocks. This is the 5th. Furthermore, when the realized one rolls forth the supreme wheel of Dhamma, Dhammacakka Pavatana, the earth shakes. Furthermore, when the realized one, mindful and aware, surrenders the life force, the earth shakes. This is the 7th cause. Furthermore, when the realized one becomes fully extinguished through the natural principle of extinguishment, without anything left over, the earth shakes. Those are the 8 causes. Well, how was that Zoom? I think that Zoom is pretty choppy. I mean, it could be done. It's a little bit wacky. So anyway, the 8 assemblies. These are, Ananda, these 8 assemblies. What 8? The assemblies of aristocrats, Brahmins, householders, and ascetics, an assembly of the gods of the 4 great kings, an assembly of the gods of the 33, an assembly of the Maras, an assembly of Brahmas. I recall having approached an assembly of 100 aristocrats. There I used to sit with them, converse and engage in discussion, and my appearance and voice became just like theirs. I educated, fired up, and inspired them with a Dhamma talk, but when I spoke, they didn't know. Who is that speaks? Is it God or human? And when my Dhamma talk was finished, I vanished. But when I vanished, they didn't know. I recall having approached the assembly of the hundreds of Brahmins, householders, ascetics, the gods of the 4 great kings, gods of the 33, Maras, Brahmas. Then I took a seat with them. Buddha going undercover as a Mara. But he was a Mara. He does say that he was a Mara in one of his past lives. And I bet you all of us were Maras in our past lives. All right. Eight dimensions of mastery. Ananda, there are these 8 dimensions of mastery. What 8? Perceiving form internally, someone sees visions externally. So some of these, if they're kind of a little bit, we are shorter on time. We have a half hour left. So some of these I might end up skipping forward just to get to more of the meatier parts here. The 8 liberations. Ananda, there are these 8 liberations. What 8? Having physical form, they see visions. I'm going to skip these 2. Ananda, this one time, when I was first awakened, I was staying near Uruvela at the goatherd's banyan tree on the bank of the Naranjara River. The Mara, the wicked one, approached me, stood to one side, and said, "Sir, may the Blessed One now become fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time to become extinguished. Get out of here. Wicked one, I will not become fully extinguished until blah, dot, dot, dot. We know monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, not until today. Now, okay, now this is when the Buddha drops the bomb on Ananda. Today, just now at the Kapala shrine, Mara the wicked approached me, the same request, reminding me. When he had spoken, I said to Mara, "Relax, wicked one, I will find." So now Buddha has broken the news to Ananda, the appeal of Ananda. When he said this, Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, "Sir, may the Blessed One please remain for the aeon. May the Holy One please remain for the aeon. That would be for the welfare and happiness of the people. Enough now, Ananda. Do not beg the realized one. Now is not the time to beg." For a second and a third time, then Ananda begged, "Ananda, do you have faith in the realized one's awakening?" "Yes, sir." "Then why do you keep pressing me up to a third time?" And then he repeats, "I've heard, you've told me that when you develop this, you can live on for an aeon. Do you have faith? Yes. Therefore, Ananda, the misdeed is yours alone. The mistake is yours alone. For even though the realized one dropped such an obvious hint, such a clear sign, you didn't beg me to remain for the eon. Ouch. Or what's left of it. If you had begged me, I would have refused you twice, but consented on the third time. Therefore, Ananda, the misdeed is yours alone. Ananda, this one time I was staying near Rajagaha, Vulture's Peak. I said to you, Ananda, Rajagaha. So this is all just repetition. So he's saying, of all these times, I went to these Bandits Cliff, Banyan Tree, Slopes of Vebar, Hot Springs of Monastery, Bamboo Grove, the Squirrels Feeding Ground. In each place I said to you, I realized one could live. So it wasn't just the one time. He was dropping hits halfway across India. He's dropping hits to Ananda. The poor Ananda. All right. Yep, this is all and so then the Buddha, did I not prepare for this when I explained that we all must be parted and separated from all we hold dear and beloved? How could it possibly be so that what is born, created, conditioned, and liable to fall apart shall not fall apart? This is deep Dhamma right here too, right? The realized one has discarded, eliminated, released, given up, relinquished, and surrendered the life force. He has definitively stated the final extinguisher of the realized one will be seen soon, 3 months from now. Come on, Ananda. Let's go to the great wood, the hall at the peaked roof. Yes, Ananda replied. So the Buddha went with Ananda to the hall of the peaked roof and said to him, gather all the mendicants staying in the vicinity of Vesali together. Yes, sir. He went and gathered the mendicants. Then the Buddha went to the assembly hall where he sat down. So, mendicants, having carefully memorized those things I have taught you from my direct knowledge, you should cultivate, develop, and make much of them, so that this spiritual practice may last for a long time. That would be for the welfare and happiness of the people, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and humans. And what are those things that I have taught you with direct knowledge? 37 factors of awakening. The 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, the 4 right efforts, the 4 bases of psychic power, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 awakening factors, and the Noble Eightfold Path. These are the things I have taught from my direct knowledge, having carefully memorized them. You should cultivate, develop, and make much of them so that the spiritual practice may last a long time. That would be for the welfare and happiness of the people. Then the Buddha said, come now, mendicants, I say to you all, conditions fall apart. Persist with diligence. Buddha's last word. The final extinguishment of the realized ones will be soon. 3 months from now, the realized one will be finally extinguished. Then the Buddha said, the Holy One went on to say, I've reached a ripe old age and little of my life is left. Having given it up, I depart. I've made a refuge for myself. Diligent and mindful, be of good virtues, mendicants, with well-settled thoughts. Take good care of your minds. Whoever meditates diligently in this teaching, giving up transmigration through births, will take an end to suffering. All right, so this looks like it's another repeat, not understanding these 4 noble truths. One has transmigrated. The 4 great references. When the Buddha had stayed in Bandagama as long as he wished, he addressed Ananda. Let's go. Let's go to this place. Let's go to that place. Lists a bunch of places. There the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, I will teach you the 4 great references. Listen and pay close attention. I will speak. Take a mendicant who says, Reverend, I have heard and learned this in the presence of the Buddha. This is the teaching, this is the training, this is the teacher's instruction. You should neither approve nor dismiss that mendicant statement, right? So you don't automatically, I disapprove, I approve. You do not approve or dismiss. Instead, you should carefully memorize those words and phrases, then check if they're included in the discourses or found in the text on monastic training. If they're not included in the discourses or found in the text of monastic training, you should draw the conclusion. Clearly, this is not the word of the Buddha. It has been incorrectly memorized by that mendicant, and so you should reject it. If they are included in the discourses or found in the text of monastic training, you should draw the conclusion. Clearly, this is the word of the Buddha. It has been correctly memorized by that mendicant. You should remember it. Take another mendicant who says, in such and such a monastery lives a Sangha with seniors and leaders. I've heard in this presence, this is the teaching, this is the training, etc. You should neither approve nor disprove. Instead, you should carefully memorize the words and check if they're included. So first it's, I heard this in the presence of the Buddha, right? Then it's, I've heard this from teachers and leaders. It's the same thing. It's repeated. Then it's, in such and such a monastery, there are several senior mendicants who are very learned. I've heard and learned this in the presence of those teachings. You should neither approve nor dismiss the mendicant statement. Instead, you should carefully memorize, check if they're included. So it's the same thing. So this is giving you this, this is giving you a way. The Buddha's teaching you, okay, well, this is how you check to see if this is real Dhamma, if this is, my words. Such a way, the monastery, there's a single mendicant who is very learned. He has memorized the teachings. You should neither approve nor dismiss. On Chunda the smith, when the Buddha had stayed in Bodhgangara as long as he wished, he addressed Ananda, come, let's go to Pava. Yes, sir. And then they went to Chunda the smith's mango grove. Chunda heard the Buddha had arrived and was staying at his mango grove. Then he went to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. The Buddha educated and encouraged, such and such with the Dhamma talk. He said to the Buddha, may the Buddha, together with the mendicants, please accept tomorrow's meal. The Buddha consented in silence. Then, knowing that the Buddha had consented, Chunda got up from his seat, bowed, respectfully circled, keeping him on his right before leaving. Sir, then it just, we've gone over this, sir, then the next night, they go to the Buddha, it's ready. The Buddha robes up. They sat on the seat. Chunda, please serve me with the pork on the Chunda, please serve me with the pork on the turn that you've prepared, and serve the mendicants with other foods. Oh, right. I think the Buddha knows something. Yes, sir, replied Chunda. Then the Buddha addressed Chunda. Chunda, any pork on the turn that's left over, you should bury it in a pond. I don't see anyone in the world with its gods and Maras and Brahmins, this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, who could properly digest it, except for the realized ones. Yes, sir, replied Chunda. He did as he was asked, then came back to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. Then the Buddha educated, encouraged, fired with a Dhamma talk, etc. After the Buddha had eaten Chunda's meal, he fell severely ill with bloody dysentery, struck by dreadful pains, close to death. But he endured with mindfulness, situational awareness, without worrying. Then he addressed Ananda. Ananda, let's go to Kusinara. I have heard that after eating the meal of Chunda the smith, the wise one fell severely ill, with pains close to death. A severe sickness attacked the teacher who had eaten the pork on the turn. While still purging, the Buddha said, I'll go to the citadel of Kusinara, bringing a drink. Then the Buddha left the road, went to the root. Ananda, please fold my outer robe. Yes, sir. When he seated, please, Ananda, please fetch me some water. I'm thirsty. When he said this, Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, just now around 500 carts have passed by. The shallow water has been churned up by their wheels, and it flows cloudy and murky. The river is not far away. Please let me go there. Basically, so the Buddha's, and then for a second time, for a third time, Buddha's like, please get me some water. And Ananda's like, well, let me go all the way out here so I can get this. And so, yes, sir, Ananda, taking his bowl, he went to the river. Now, though, the shallow water in that creek had been churned up by wheels, Ananda approached it, flowed transparent, cleared, and unclouded. So all of a sudden now there's nice water for the Buddha. It's incredible. It is amazing. The realized one has such psychic power. On Pukusa the Mala. Now at that time, Pukusa the Mala, the disciple of Alara Kalama, was traveling along the road. He saw the Buddha. He went to him. It's incredible. Those who have gone forth remain in such peaceful meditations. Once it so happened that Alara Kalama was traveling the same road, left by the road, and sat at the root of the nearby tree. There around 500 carts passed. So did you see the 500 carts go past? No, friend, I didn't see them. But did you hear a sound? No, friend, I didn't hear a sound. Were you asleep? No, I wasn't asleep. But were you conscious? Yes, friend. So, sir, while conscious and awake, you neither heard nor a sound as 500 carts passed by right next to you. Why, sir, even your outer robe is covered with dust. Yes, friend. Then that person thought, it's amazing. All right. I think we can pass this. Pukusa addressed please, my man, fetch a pair of ready-to-wear polished garments, golden garments. Yes, sir, replied the man, and did as he was asked. Then Pukusa brought the garments to the Buddha. Sir, please accept these pair of ready-to-wear polished golden garments for me out of compassion. Well, then, Pukusa, clothe me in one and Ananda in the other. Yes, sir. Then the Buddha, educated and encouraged, bowed down respectfully. Then, not long after Pukusa left, Ananda placed the pair of golden garments on the Buddha's body. But when placed on the Buddha's body, they seemed to lose their shine. Then Ananda said to the Buddha, it is incredible, sir. It is amazing how pure and bright is the color of the realized one's skin. When this pair of ready-to-wear polished golden garments is placed on the Buddha's body, they seem to lose their shine. That's so true, Ananda, so true. There are 2 times when the color of the realized one's skin becomes extra pure and bright. The night the realized one becomes awakened, and when he becomes fully extinguished. Today, Ananda, in the last watch of the night between the pair of salt trees in the salt forest of the Malas at Upavatana near Kushinara shall be the realized one's full extinguishment. Come, let's go. Then the Buddha, together with large Sangha of Mendicants, went to the Kakuta river. He plunged into the river and bathed and drank. And when he had emerged, he went to the mango grove where he addressed Venerable Chundika. Please, Chundika, fold my outer robes. Yes, replied. After bathing and drinking, the teacher emerged before the group of mendicants. In the middle, the Buddha, the teacher who rolled forth the present dispensation. The great hermit went to the mango grove. He addressed the mendicants named Chundika, spread out my folded robe so I can lie down. The self-developed one urged Chunda, who quickly spread the folded robe. teacher, being tired, lay down where Chunda sat there before him. Then the Buddha said to Venerable Ananda, now it may happen, Ananda, that others may give rise to some regret for Chunda the smith. It's your loss, friend Chunda. It's your misfortune. And that you, the realized one, became fully extinguished after eating his last meal from you. You should get rid of remorse in Chunda the smith like this. You're fortunate, friend Chunda. You're so very fortunate. And that the realized one became fully extinguished after eating his last meal from you. I have heard and learned this in the presence of the Buddha. There are 2 meal offerings that have identical fruit and result and are more fruitful and beneficial than any other meal offerings. What 2? The meal after eating, which a realized one becomes fully awakened, and the meal after eating, the realized one becomes fully extinguished. These 2 meal offerings have identical fruit and result and are more fruitful and beneficial. You've accumulated a deed that leads to long life, beauty, happiness, fame, heaven, and sovereignty. That is how you should get rid of Chunda's remorse. The pair of sal trees. Come on, Ananda, let's go to the far shore of the Golden River and on to the sal forest of the Malas at Upavatana, near Kushinara. We are coming close to the end. Yes, sir. Buddha lay down in the lion's posture on the right side, placing one foot on top of the other, mindful and aware. Now at that time, the 2 sal trees were in full blossom, with flowers out of season. They sprinkled and bestrewed the realized one's body in honor of the realized one. And the flowers of the heavenly flame tree fell from the sky. And they too sprinkled and bestrewed the realized one's body in honor of the realized one. And the heavenly sandalwood powder fell from the sky, and it too sprinkled the bestrewed of the realized one's body in honor. And heavenly music played in the sky in honor of the realized ones. And the heavenly choirs sang in the sky in honor of the realized one. And the Buddha pointed out to Ananda what was happening, added, that's not how the realized one is honored, respected, revered, venerated, and esteemed. Right? This is important. Right? All this fanfare, gods in the sky, trumpets coming out of the sky, all these things. The Buddha's like, that's not how you honor the Blessed One. Right? This is very important. Any monk or nun, or male or female lay follower who practices in line with the teachings, practicing properly, living in line with the teachings, they honor, respect, revere, renovate, and esteem the realized one with the highest honor. Right? Living like the mountains are closing in. Practicing like your head's on fire. Raising the seer's banner and roaring your lion's roar. Doing this is how you honor the Buddha. Not by any kind of fanciness. So Ananda, you should train like this. We shall practice in line with the teachings, practicing properly, living in line with the teachings. The monk Upavana. Let's see. Now at that time, the Venerable Upavana was standing in front of the Buddha, fanning him. Then the Buddha made him move. Move over, mendicant. Don't stand in front of me. Ananda thought the Venerable Upavana has been the Buddha's attendant for a long time, close to him, living in his presence. Yet in his final hour, the Buddha makes him move, saying, move over. What is the cause? Then Ananda went to the Buddha. The Venerable Upavana has been your What is the cause? Most of the deities from 10 solar systems have gathered to see the realized one. For the 12 leagues all around the sal trees, sal grove, there's not one spot, not even a fraction of a hair's tip, that is not crowded full of illustrious deities. The deities are complaining. We come such a long way from 10,000 solar systems to see the realized one. Only rarely do realized ones arise in the world. Perfected ones, fully awakened. This very day is the last watch of the night, the realized one will become extinguished. And this illustrious mendicant is standing in front of the Buddha, blocking the view. We won't get to see the realized one in his final hours. But sir, what kind of deities are you thinking of? All right, so he goes through a bunch of lists. We're going to skip that. The 4 inspiring places. This is what I was saying before about where the Buddha, for faith followers, these 4 places. Previously, sir, when the Mendicants had completed the rainy season, residents in but then the Buddha had passed. But when the Buddha has passed, we won't get to see the esteemed Mendicants or pay homage to them. Ananda, a faithful gentleman, should go see these 4 inspiring places. What for? Thinking, the realized one, here the realized one was born. This is an inspiring place. Thinking, here the realized one became awakened as supreme, fully awakened Buddha. This is an inspiring place. Thinking, here the supreme wheel of Dhamma was rolled forth by the realized one. This is an inspiring place. Thinking, here the realized one became fully extinguished through the natural principle of extinguishment without anything left over. This is an inspiring place. These are the 4 inspired places that the faithful gentleman should go and see. Faithful monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen will come and think, here the realized one was born, awakened, set forth the wheel of Dhamma, and fully extinguished. Anyone who passes away while on pilgrimage to these shrines will, when the body breaks up after death, be reborn in a good place. Ananda's questions. Sir, how do we proceed when it comes to females? Ooh, without seeing, Ananda. But when seeing, how to proceed? Without getting into conversation, Ananda. But when in conversation, how to proceed? Be mindful, Ananda. That's an interesting, this is the first time I've read Bhante Sujata's translation of this. Sir, how do we proceed when it comes to the realized one's corpse? Don't get involved in rites for venerate. Don't get involved in the rites for venerating the realized one's corpse, Ananda. Please, Ananda, you must all strive and practice for your own goal. Meditate, diligent, keen, and resolute for your own goal. There are astute aristocrats, Brahmins, and householders who are devoted to the realized ones. They will perform the rites for venerating the realized one's corpse. But, sir, how to proceed when it comes to the corpse? Proceed in the same way as they do for the corpse of a wheel-turning monarch. But how do they proceed the wheel-turning monarch corpse? Let's see. I'm going to skip this. They do all kinds of fancy things, wrap it up with fancy clothes and fancy oil and fancy procedures and such and such. We're going to go past there. Persons worthy of monument. Ananda, these 4 are worthy of a monument. What for? A realized one, a perfected one, a fully awakened Buddha, a Buddha awakened for themselves, a disciple of the realized one, and a wheel-turning monarch. What reason are these worthy? Because they will inspire confidence in the people. Many people will be inspired by these things. Ananda's incredible qualities. So now after we've beaten poor Ananda in the dust, before the Buddha dies, we can have some qualities of Ananda. Venerable Ananda entered the dwelling and stood there leaning against the door jamb, crying, "Oh, I'm still only a trainee with work left to do, and my teacher is about to become fully extinguished. He who is so kind to me." Then the Buddha said to the Mendicants, "Mendicants, where is Ananda?" "Sir, Ananda has entered the dwelling and stands there leaning against the door crying." I'm skipping, the repetition. So the Buddha said to the monk, "Please, monk, in my name, tell Ananda." The teacher summons him. Yes. Ananda comes, bows. "Enough, Ananda. Do not grieve. Do not lament. Did I not prepare for this? when I explained that we must be parted and separated from all we hold dear and beloved, how could it be possible that when what is born, created, conditioned, and liable to fall apart should not do so? Even the realized one's body. For a long time, Ananda, you've treated and the realized one with deeds of body, speech, and mind that are loving, beneficial, pleasant, wholehearted, and limitless. You have done good deeds, Ananda. Develop yourself to meditation, and soon you will be free from defilements. Then the Buddha said to the Mendicants, the Buddhas of the past or the future have attendants who are no better than Ananda is for me. Ananda is astute. He is intelligent. He knows the time for monks, nuns, laymen, kings, registers, to visit the realized ones. There are these 4 incredible, amazing things about Ananda. What for? If an assembly of monks goes to see Ananda, they're uplifted by seeing him and uplifted by hearing him speak. And when he falls silent, they've never had enough. If the assembly of nuns, laymen, so it's the same thing. These are the 4 incredible and amazing things about a wheel-turning monarch. Okay, so basically, and it's repeated. So basically, he says these incredible 4 things about Ananda are the same as the wheel-turning monarch. All right. And so this next one, they're asking the Buddha, please don't become extinguished in this little podunk place in the middle of nowhere. These little rednecks, not city people. We should come to the city, and with all the people, there would be many people all around. And then the Buddha says, once upon a time, in this spot, there was a great empire, a great king, and he was that king, right? And he says, in the future, this spot will also be great. So that's why the Buddha has chosen this spot. Then the Mallas pay homage. This is funny. So all these Mallas come, so many people. And then we want to pay homage to the Buddha. They're rending their hair. They're doing all these things. And then Ananda says, if I have the Mallas pay homage to the Buddha one by one, they won't be finished before first light. I'd better separate them family by family and have them pay homage. And so that he did. All right. Nah, well, we're close, but let's see. If we go over a couple of minutes, I'm okay. It's not going to be too much longer. I mean, we're really close to the end, pretty much. The Buddha's last words. Important. Now, see, this is very important as well. This is among those very impactful lines for me in the early days. Now, Ananda, some of you might think the teacher's dispensation is past. Now we have no teacher. But you should not think like this. The teacher and the training I have taught and pointed to you out shall be the teacher after my passing. Right? There's no monks. There's no Buddhist pope, right? This is why, with exception of some Buddhist countries, but really, Buddhism is not there's no central authority. There's no Buddhist Vatican somewhere in India where there's a Buddhist pope who says this is these things and this things, right? So this is why the Buddha says the Dhamma, the teaching shall be your teacher after my passing. Now, this is another thing. After my passing, mendicants ought not to address each other as friend, as they do today. A more senior mendicant ought to address a more junior mendicant by name or clan or by saying friend. A more junior mendicant ought to address a more senior mendicant by saying sir or venerable. This is why junior monastics call senior monastics Bhante, And senior monastics can call junior monastics like mine. They can say Jayasara, so they don't have to say Bhante Jayasara. They say Jayasara, or they say Avuso, friend, or Ayasma, which is also like friend, right? So the Buddha here is, before it was, everybody was pretty much the same. I mean, there was, there was some seniority, but everybody was pretty much the same. And Buddha was the Bhante, right? Everybody else was friend. Hey, friend, how you doing, friend? How you doing, friend? But now, once the Buddha's gone, now the senior monastics are Bhante, junior monastics are friend or by their name. If it wishes, after my passing, the Sangha may abolish the lesser and minor training rules. Key hint there. Notice he doesn't give a time limit on that. He just says after his passing. After my passing, give the prime punishment to the mendicant Chana. But sir, what is the prime punishment? Chana may say what he likes, but the mendicants should not advise or instruct him. So the prime punishment, the worst punishment for a monk, is to be ignored, to be taken out of the fold. And the story goes that they did this to Chana. He was quite sad about it, and then he came back and he became awakened. So it had a good ending. Then the Buddha asks, perhaps there is a single mendicant that has doubt about the Buddha, the Dhamma, or the Sangha. Please ask. He asks 3 times, and then he says, mendicants, perhaps you don't ask out of respect for the teacher. So let a friend tell a friend. So they're like, don't think of me as the Buddha, just a friend. Is there any, doubts that you have? Please tell me. And then, then the Buddha says that I see that nobody. I'm not exactly sure why Chana was punished. I'm sure there's a story about it somewhere, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. Then the Buddha entered the full extinguishment. Then the Buddha entered the first absorption. So he goes into the jhanas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, the attainments. Some people call them the arupa jhanas. And then he goes back down to the first jhana, and then he goes up to the 4th jhana again, and in the 4th jhana, he goes out like the light. In the 4th jhana, he is extinguished. When the Buddha became fully extinguished, along the full extinguishment, there was a great earthquake. All creatures in this world may lay down this bag of bones, for even the teacher. This is the Brahma, the great Brahma in the sky, Sahampati. Even the teacher such as this, unrivaled in the world, the realized one attained to power, the Buddha became fully extinguished. When the Buddha became extinguished, Saka, Lord of the gods, recited, "O conditions are impermanent, their nature is to rise and fall. Having arisen, they then must cease." Their stilling is truly bliss. When the Buddha became fully extinguishment, Venerable Anuruddha recited this verse. There is no more breathing for the poised one of steady heart. Imperturbable, committed to peace, the sage has done his time. He's done his time like he's in prison. He's finally free. Last body is done. He's done his time. He put up with painful feelings without flinching. The liberation of his heart was like the extinguishing of a lamp. And again, heart here, this is chitta, so Thai forest, heart. The regular translation would be the mind. So when the Buddha became extinguished, there was terror. Then they had goosebumps. When the Buddha, endowed with all fine qualities, became fully extinguished. When the Buddha became fully extinguished, this is another very powerful thing. I see the time, we're over, but we're coming close here. Mendicants there with their arms raised, falling down like their feet were chopped off, rolling back and forth, lamenting, too soon the Blessed One has become fully extinguished. Too soon the Holy One has become fully extinguished. Too soon the seer has vanished from the world. Now, but the mendicants who were free of desire endured mindfully and aware, thinking, conditions are impermanent. How could it possibly be otherwise? That's what I want to be. To this day, when I first read this, I'm like, yes, that's exactly how I want to be. And to this day, I still want to be like those mendicants. Amazing. Conditions are impermanent. Then Anuruddha addressed the mendicants. Enough. Do not grieve or lament. Did the Buddha not prepare us for this? So Anuruddha is like, come on, mendicants. Did the Buddha, how many Dhamma talks from the Buddha have you heard? Right? Did the Buddha not prepare for this? All right, so we're at the end here, the rights of venerating. Now, the funny part about this, I'm not going to go through all of this, but the funny part about this is how the Buddha's ashes are barely even cold before they start fighting over who gets the ashes, right? The Buddha's like, okay, the Buddha's gone not even a day, and already they're starting to forget the teaching, and they're already starting to fight over who gets the ashes. There's a whole chapter distributing the relics. And so they distribute the relics, etc. Venerating the relics. They built large monuments for their portions of the relics and held festivals in their honors. Thus, there were 8 monuments for the relics, not a 9 for the urn, a 9th for the urn, and 10th for the embers. That's how it was in those days. There it is. We made it. Wow. with lots of going through. But, yeah. Oh. I thought I saw somebody say, hello, Venerable. I was wondering if there was a monastic that joined us. All right. But so now, yeah, no, this is this was, somewhat of a speed read, as they say, going through and, going through different parts and all that kind of stuff. All right. My voice is done. Yeah. Okay. So if I didn't do the skipping, we definitely would have had to have gone for the 3rd hour. So Greeno Bino is right in that. That's a good 3 hours of recitation. All right, friends. Let's do the merits. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. Until next time, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy, practice well, and be well. I'll see you guys for the Saturday session on Second Life and the Suttas Monday. Those of you who are on the Discord. Is our friend who was looking to get on the Discord still on here? We gave him the email, so hopefully he can email. All right. Okay, friends, until next time. Sukhi Hotu.